Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of the 20th Annual Celebration Invention at the University of Michigan. Each year we gather at this time to celebrate and recognize the achievements of the many talented inventors and innovators on our campuses. My name is Chuck Cole. I'm the Associate Director of Ventures in the Office of Technology Transfer at U of M. Our team helps founders build successful startup companies based on U of M intellectual property, including a record 31 new startups launched just this past year. I'll be your host today for our panel discussion. Is the MTRAC Translational Research and Commercialization, or MTRAC, program right for you? This is a really important source of funding for advancing university-based research towards commercialization. And I can tell you firsthand just how impactful these programs have been through the years for many of our project teams. So today we're fortunate to have Denise Graves from the MEDC and each of the 5 MTRAC program directors with us to tell us about their funding programs and answer your questions. So just a little housekeeping. Some of you may have already submitted questions during registration, but if you haven't yet, don't worry. You can still make use of the Q&A feature on Zoom, and we'll do our best to answer them as time allows. So with that, I'd like to introduce Denise Graves to get us started. Denise?
Hello, Chuck. Thank you.
So I'm sorry, I meant to introduce you first, but so Denise is the University Relations Director for the Entrepreneurship and Innovation team at the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. And she works closely with Michigan's public universities, key entrepreneurial stakeholders, and investors, managing programs that support statewide collaboration and the commercialization of early stage technology, including these 5 MTRAC programs. And with that, welcome, Denise.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, everyone, for joining in on the conversation about the Michigan Translational Research and Commercialization Program. And before I get started, I want to give a big congratulations to the University of Michigan and their Tech Transfer Office under the leadership of Kelly Sexton for another amazing record-breaking year. And to all of your founders and faculty who have done such a great job in their work with their invention disclosures and startups, it's awe-inspiring. And I really enjoyed providing oversight to the MTRAC program and working with all of our key partners across the state, the universities. So I'm excited for you to learn a little bit more about the MTRAC program and how you can get plugged in. So next slide, please. And we can go on to the next slide. Thank you. So one more back. All right, get the kinks ironed out here. Glad I'm taking one for the team before we get the commercialization program directors going. So this graphic provides a great 30,000 level overview of all of the programs that the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Initiative at the MEDC supports. And we provide funding support for 3 key technology areas, if you will. First of all, in support of commercialization of university technologies. Second is to service providers such as the SBDC and BBC and their work with our startups and our university projects. And then finally, for early stage capital. So programs like the First Capital Fund and Pre-Seed Fund that helps provide that very important funding support to the startups before they start fundraising for their big seed, angel, and venture capital rounds, if that's a route they choose to go. And as you can see, the MTRAC program is very integral and sits kind of right in the middle of the university programs. Early on, we have the Advanced Proof of Concept Fund that provides some funding for projects to see if there's anything, there, if you will. And then we have a mentors program. Mentors are very important in this process and helping to add some business and some commercial milestones and support to these projects. And then finally today, we're going to focus the conversation on the 5 MTRAC hubs and their work across the state. So next slide, please. The MTRAC program provides or receives funding support from the Michigan Strategic Fund through the 21st Century Jobs Fund of the state of Michigan. And the program is administered here at the MEDC through the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Initiative. And as Chuck mentioned, is one of the key programs that I have the opportunity to work with at the MEDC. The MTRAC program, as you'll learn more about today, is focused on 5 key technology sectors. And the life sciences, advanced transportation, Agbio, advanced computing, and advanced materials. Each innovation hub is hosted at a university and is managed, the program is managed by a commercialization program director who you'll meet all 5 of them today. And the funding decisions are made through their oversight committees. And the oversight committees are made up of industry and investment professionals. And the oversight committee is very key to the success of the program because those individuals across the United States, not just from Michigan, provide great mentoring and oversight to these projects as they accomplish their commercial milestones. All institutes of higher education, hospital systems, and nonprofit research centers are eligible to submit proposals into the MTRAC program. And some key metrics we'd like to share with you from when the statewide program was launched in April 2016 through June of 2020 is that the innovation hubs have received over 400 proposals and have funded over 190 projects. Those projects have created 33 startups, and overall the MTRAC innovation hubs have received an additional $130 million in follow-on funding. Next slide, please. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about all of the programs that the MEDC Entrepreneurship and Innovation Initiative support, please visit michiganbusiness.org/entrepreneurship. Or if there is anything I could do to help you in your quest to receive funding or participate in the MTRAC program, please feel free to reach out to me, and my contact information is there as well. Now, without further ado, let's learn a little bit more about the MTRAC Innovation Hubs. Chuck?
Thank you, Denise. And I'd also like us to say a special thanks to the MEDC. You know, when you put up that subway map, and it's really impressive, the breadth of support that's available to our innovators and entrepreneurs across the state. And when I've had opportunities to speak with my peers across the country, many of them are just really envious of the resources that we have. So we're very appreciative to have access to all these programs in Michigan. So as Denise said, now I'd like to introduce our remaining panelists. And after the introductions, they'll each take just a few minutes to walk you through some of the important details of their respective programs. So first up is Joe Effelter. Joe is a program director for the MTRAC Agbio Hub at Michigan State University. He's an experienced entrepreneur, a life scientist, and a technology commercialization specialist who's been active in the mid-Michigan entrepreneurial ecosystem for 3 decades. A former Dow chemical research scientist and biotech industry executive, Joe has also served as an entrepreneur in residence at Saginaw Valley State University and has taught entrepreneurship at Central Michigan University. Ed Kim is the program director for the MTRAC Hub for Advanced Computing at Wayne State. Previously, he served in senior management positions, managing cross-functional initiatives within engineering. He also had financial leadership assignments with companies such as Ford and FCA. Ed's been very active in the startup ecosystem as a founder, CEO, an advisor, an angel investor, leading and supporting early stage scalable ventures in automation, cognitive technologies, and advanced manufacturing. Sarah Risch directs the MTRAC Life Science Hub at U of M and has over 5 years of experience facilitating the commercialization of life science technologies. Previously at Ohio Health, she now manages translational funding programs for the med school's Fast Forward Medical Innovation Program. She helps innovators determine the commercial potential and the best path forward for their projects. Sarah also teaches commercialization education, where she helps participants prepare successful business cases for funding and as well as development partnerships. Nate Yenor is the program director for the MTRAC Advanced Materials Hub at Michigan Tech. He has over 4 years experience working in the tech transfer offices of Michigan State and Michigan Tech. Early in his career, Nate acquired considerable hands-on experience in machine shops, factories, and steel mills that provided him with real-world insights and a key interest into advanced materials and manufacturing methods. And finally, Eric Peterson is the program director for the MTRAC Advanced Transportation Hub at the University of Michigan. Prior to joining U of M, he served as a vice president within Rolls-Royce's effort to expand into the nuclear power industry and led efforts at Chrysler and Mercedes in product planning, vehicle engineering, marketing, and electrification. Most recently, Eric founded a startup that developed drone systems for emergency response. So now with that, I'll ask Joe to kick things off and start by telling us about the MTRAC Agbio program. Joe?
Well, thank you, Chuck, and thank you to the University of Michigan and everyone who worked so hard to put this MTRAC focused event together today. It's a pleasure to be here. And thank you to the audience who is tuning in today and participating. So talking about the agriculture and food system value chain in the state of Michigan is kind of like talking about the Great Lakes. It's awesome, it's extensive, it's diverse, and almost beyond description. So my task is difficult here. It's a $110+ billion industry that's largely divided between 25 and $100 million slices, various segments of the industry. So the Agbio Innovation Hub, based at Michigan State University, seeks to identify and support development and commercialization of technologies that can have a transformational impact on one or hopefully many more than one of these vast industry segments, not just in Michigan, but nationally and internationally. So next slide, please. What I've tried to do here is kind of capture some of the verticals that are represented by this. So while the Agbio Hub includes some expected themes that you might think would be here, such as crop and animal agriculture, it's worth noting that even those areas include some opportunities with really long product development timelines, like new crop development, new traits, veterinary medicines, and vaccines. It also encompasses really a wide variety of technologies and applications in which the time to translate an invention into a market-ready innovation can really be remarkably fast. For example, you can see some pictures of some of that here. Development of tools such as hardware, software, drone, devices, sensors, applicators that can increase the precision of an intervention, decrease waste, maybe shorten a supply chain or increase the resilience of crops through nutritional intervention or soil level intervention, the resilience of animals or supply chains, or maybe increase the amount of information that's available to support critical interventions by a farmer or a bioprocess developer. Any of these kinds of things could be adapted very quickly. So the Agbio Hub really covers a range of long and short adoption cycles. And so we invite people with ideas in either of those categories or anything in between to apply here. So the Agbio Innovation Hub covers a diverse range of translational research and technology development and innovation opportunities in feed, food, fuels, fiber, forest, and ecosystem level innovations. Next slide, please. One example of a success story out of this hub is SIBO Technologies. It was a startup founded by world-renowned MSU researcher Bruno Basso about a little more than a decade ago. Dr. Basso and colleagues set out more to create a hardware and software platform to collect and integrate information, farm-level information for decision-making and intervention and management, et cetera. In the process of doing so, they developed this mobile platform-based system that's really become the Zillow for farms, for agricultural properties, nationwide and even internationally. So the company continues to grow rapidly, having raised now over $70 million in investment funding, and the story continues. So SIBO Technology represents really one of many information collection and machine learning concepts that apply broadly and have applicability in a variety of ways across ag and bio-related industries. Next slide. So if you or your team or a team you know well or work with has some ideas, developing a technology with potential to make a high impact in one of these ag bio industry segments, contact us. My information is here on the slide. Currently, the Agbio Innovation Hub runs two what we call starter grant cycles per year, one in the summer that just concluded. We just closed that last week on September 14th, and one in the winter, usually announced at the end of the year with due dates in late February or March. These are $15,000 to $25,000 grants to help someone just get over an initial maybe prototype development or customer discovery milestone to see whether they have something that might be ready for maybe a larger round of funding, 1 or 2 milestones. It's usually a 6-month kind of project. Our larger grant is usually the $70,000 to $100,000 cycle that runs once a year. That RFP will open up very soon, probably early next week. Those grant applications will be due in late November. So those typically cover a 1-year-long project with 4 or 5 milestones. Obviously, some of those are customer related, discovery, market related, as well as technology advancement. So as I said, that RFP opens next week, and we'll be looking for some ideas and some proposals to be submitted from some of you who are watching today. So thank you for listening. And next up is Ed Kim with the MTRAC focused on advanced computing.
Thank you, Joe. Hi, my name is Ed Kim. As Joe said, I'm the program director for the MTRAC Innovation Hub for the advanced computing, also known as the Deep Tech. Next slide, please. Advanced computing. So the Advanced Computing Hub is supported by 11 Oversight Committee members. As Denise had mentioned earlier, we think what makes us really special and what makes Amtrak, all Amtrak Hub very special is that the engaged participation by the Oversight Committee members. So we spent a lot of time figuring out what kind of mentors and advisors we want to surround our innovators with. So what we have done is that we informing the Oversight Committee, rather than looking for experienced operational executives or functional specialists from large organizations, we look for Oversight Committee members that have 3 specific attributes in terms of recruiting the Oversight Committee members. One is that we wanted to have deep domain technologists with a deep domain knowledge who has a lot of general business leadership. So we're looking for somebody not just understands the technology, but understands how the business operates, especially commercializing. And the second type of Oversight Committee members we're looking for was that the innovators with the hands-on commercialization and as experience with a track record of success, not only as a startup founder, but also we're looking for the corporate entrepreneurs who are actually working within large organizations to bring new transformation and to the marketplace. And the third type of the Oversight Committee members we recruited is that the early stage investors with the track record of high tolerance for risk taking. So we're talking about the private investors or VCs that are taking on if it's taking high risk for the transformation innovation that are typically first, a lot of investors would not invest in, but who's willing to has a track record of taking risks. So we have recruited 11 Oversight Committee members, and of which that most of them, or if not all of them, has at least 2 or 3 of these attributes. And we felt that this is extremely critical because of the Deep Tech Hub. Advanced Computing Hub is designed to be an outcome-based program to support the teams to accelerate through the progress through hit the next milestone as early as possible. So it is extremely important for us to have the Oversight Committee members who has the internalized DNA, who are willing to help and understand the type of the projects we're undertaking, and that they can really provide the impact for support. And they understand that extremely well from the very get-go. So so our program, just like other MTRAC program, is a 12-month grant, but our program, the work plan is designed to hit the milestone as quickly as possible, one of which is that achieving the follow-on funding. So to give you, just referring to the slide, that I do want to mention a few people, and our Oversight Committee member, going back, is that we have our Oversight Committee members are represented by some of the larger companies as listed on the slide deck. Is that we have Dan Garrison, who is a managing partner of the Accenture, who happens to hold the 3 patents in quantum computing. We have a team based from the General Motors who leads the global strategy deployment for all the immersive technologies as such. So we have some unique individuals with who has a deep interest and understanding of the domain and who are prepared to help the teams that we are funding. Next slide, please. So our hub, we have categorized because as Joe was talking about earlier, so our technology hub covers many different sectors and whatnot. And so one thing that we decided to do was our hub is basically sector agnostic, but we did focus on looking at the technology and divide them into 7 different tech channels, such as cognitive computing, which is the machine learning, deep learning, RPA, robotic automation process, natural language processing, and some of the AI technologies that the people are referring to, where we focus on cybersecurity, immersive technologies such as the augmented reality, mixed reality, not so much on the virtual reality, but we'll take a look at as well. And obviously Internet of Things and the Industry X.0. And the blockchain, and lastly is that the next generation computing, such as quantum computing, neuromorphic computing, and even such as more memory and the chip making technology as well. So one of the key things that we're focused on here is that we highly promote and encourage the convergence and interoperability of these tech channels. So I think this having just focused on the one tech channel doesn't really truly bring the transformational application innovation into the marketplace. So we do look for the 2 or more of these tech channels, and the team that can successfully converge and provide the business model towards that is something that we promote as well. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, is that as I mentioned before, is the hub is designed to do following things. Our focus and our driver is that our goal is to accelerate teams' progress to achieve the TLL level 6, which means that typically when you look at it from the technology readiness level perspective, most of the teams that approach us and apply for the hub for our funding is that what we call a TLL 4, which means that you have a proof of concept and the validated technology from a lab perspective. So our program and our team is really help you push forward your technology towards TLL 6, which is that it's starting to get the industry buy-in. And second thing is that we provide you with the opportunity to network and develop relationship through the early engagement and leveraging the network and relationship. And the third thing is that we really focus on driving to help the team put together a design and put together and prove out what we call a killer experiment, which is that focus on the key hypothesis that will tell you that your technology really makes a difference, can bring a difference, and also how do you basically validate your technology from the market perspective. And the fourth, and probably the most important thing is that we do provide the de-risking fund of $75,000 to $100,000. We actually have, but we don't have we just have one main fund, and which is the $7,500,000. So that we kind of design our scope and outcome is combine the two funding, the roadmap that Joe had provided, but we have combined them into just one funding opportunity. So from that perspective, that ends my presentation, and I hand it over to Sarah Reich.
Thanks, Ed. As Ed mentioned, I'm Sarah Rich, and I'm with the MTRAC for Life Sciences program. Our program's housed at U of M and is co-managed by OTT and Fast Forward Medical Innovation, a unit of the Medical School Office of Research. On the next slide, you'll see that, there we go. On the next slide, you'll see that we fund translational projects with significant commercial potential and the ultimate goal of impacting human health. We offer one-year awards for up to $150,000, and actually have a open RFP right now with the deadline of October 8th. If you're interested in applying, please reach out to me for an idea consultation. We also offer early stage opportunities through our Kickstart program. Those are up to $42,500, and we have a semi-annual RFP. The next RFP will come out in March with a proposal deadline of May 1st. On the next slide, you can see that we fund projects that are therapeutics, medical devices, diagnostics, or healthcare IT solutions. Our early stage program, Kickstart, example milestones for a therapeutics project might include medicinal chemistry to generate new IP, synthesis, or initial in vivo efficacy studies. Medical device and diagnostics projects might include prototype design and testing in an ex vivo model or a simulated environment. Healthcare IT solutions might apply for Kickstart for minimum viable product design, development, and local testing. Our MTRAC for Life Sciences program seeks to fund mid-stage projects, and so we define that as projects that are about 12 to 24 months out from university exit. And in this case, therapeutics projects might apply for expanded in vivo efficacy and some preclinical work such as PK/PD, safety, tox, those type of things that might go into a preclinical package. Medical device and diagnostics projects generally will apply for prototype refinement and validation, and often testing in a preclinical in vivo model or potentially a clinical setting. And then healthcare IT solutions in MTRAC will often be refining their prototype and validating and testing, generally at another institution. On this slide here, you can see that a few of our past success stories. So the first I wanted to mention was Lola Eniola Adefeso from U of M. Her polyaspirin particles for the treatment of acute lung injury and acute respiratory distress syndrome were funded in Kickstart for in vivo efficacy. She then went on to be funded in MTRAC for some biodistribution testing, and then large animal in vivo efficacy. Her technology has since been licensed to Acelisa Bio in Southfield, Michigan, and they plan to enter the clinical phase early next year. I'd also like to draw to your attention that her technology will be highlighted tomorrow at the 12 p.m. session covering technologies fighting against COVID-19. Another successful project is the patient auto slider. This technology seeks to aid in patient transport and reduce injuries to healthcare workers. The project is led by Eric Van Mittendorp at Spectrum Health Innovations and was funded in Kickstart for prototype refinement and testing, and MTRAC for detailed design and verification testing. It was recently licensed to The Patient Company, a startup based in Grand Rapids. The final example here, pathologists at U of M received funding for their software program for cancer diagnosis and treatment. MTRAC supported algorithm testing, data processing optimization, analysis of external data sets, and user interface design. The technology has been licensed to Genomenon in Ann Arbor, and the company has raised over $7.5 million in funding and created 18 jobs. Together, I hope this gives you an idea of if the MTRAC for Life Sciences program is right for you. Please reach out to me if you are interested in applying or have any questions. And with that, I'd like to introduce Nate Yenor with MTRAC Advanced Materials.
Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Nate Yenor. As Sarah mentioned, I am the CPD for the Advanced Materials MTRAC Hub, hosted out of Michigan Technological University. Next slide, please. So the eligible projects that we most favorably consider in our application are development of novel materials, novel applications of conventional materials, or processes enabling the application of novel materials or conventional materials for novel purposes. One of our fairly new requirements that we're asking of is that if there is some sort of regulatory body, particularly with health sciences, that is involved in your commercialization path, we will be asking that you apply to a different hub, particularly U of M's Life Sciences Hub, so that you might be able to find a better fit of the expertise within the oversight committees there versus our expertise on our oversight committee. Next slide, please. So we're looking to develop technologies to the point where they're capable of demonstrating what they've actually set out to do. So a commercial application of basic research that has already been conducted. We have several oversight committee members, 10 members, that have networks of their own that are able to connect many of our inventors to industry and sector specific expertise. Our oversight committee members consist of venture capital folks, experienced entrepreneurs, materials and chemicals experts from various fields and various applications. Our cycles run 12-month programs, and each cycle typically funds around 3 to 4 projects in the funding amount of $30,000 to $50,000. Those are the most favorably looked upon projects. Next slide, please. So our process for next opening will begin, our RFP will open January 1st of 2021. This will close in the middle of March 15th of 21. A week after which, finalists will be invited to have an in-person or in Zoom presentation to our full oversight committee members. Finalists will be presenting, May 10th, and they will be selected roughly a week after which, and the PIs will be notified then. Our projects will be starting in August 31 of 2021. Next slide, please. So some previously funded projects that we have examples of, carbon nanotubes used for active noise control system in vehicles. Certainly carbon nanotubes was nothing necessarily new at the time of this proposal. However, its particular application in this area was something that was considered to be novel at the time. Similarly, we have ceramic materials developed for solid state batteries, and this is a great example of one project that was able to apply for several different hubs, and I believe we'll be discussing later on in more detail as well. A third technology that I'd like to highlight is a new efficient process of developing high purity salt. And so certainly salt is not a novel material, right? But the process by which this salt was developed was so unique that we were able to get intellectual property protections around this technology, and it was novel to the point where it was considered and awarded funding through our program. And finally, the development of self-cleaning and smudge-free resistant glass panels was another example of a project that we have funded. Excellent. Next slide, please. So next up, I'd like to invite Eric Peterson to discuss their advanced transportation program.
Okay, thank you, Nate. I'm Eric Peterson. I manage the Transportation Hub. Amtrak. Next slide, please. Just like to highlight a few points here. So transportation, we are close to Detroit City, but we interpret transportation very broadly. So it's not just technologies that can eventually bolt onto cars. We've had a lot of non-automotive technologies during the history of this program, such as a travel planning search engine, hydrogen production system, connected vehicle traffic signal optimization, and delivery drone fleet coordination and optimization. So I think if you are developing a technology that can fit in any way to moving people, moving goods in a better way, then we're interested in talking to you. Next slide, please. When you consider university technology commercialization, often you think about startup companies, but also we have many technologies that have been licensed or are likely to be licensed into industry. So sometimes the PIs, the researchers, don't want to quit their university jobs, and sometimes the industry that has, basically that has a problem that their technology will solve is one where it's difficult to create a startup that can supply high volume parts. So I just wanted to make sure that people are clear that commercialization in this sense can mean developing a technology, understanding the problem well enough to get it licensed into industry. Next slide, please. Okay. We run one cycle per year. Our RFP is in the first quarter of next year, and finalists from the proposals will pitch to our Oversight Committee in early June, with funding decisions made directly after that, and funding starts August 1. So aspects of a successful application: unique technology that can create a startup or a license that has long-term differentiation, long-term advantage. Understanding the industry that you're trying to basically eventually sell into. So understanding the problem that you're solving, understanding your customers and everybody else in the ecosystem that the product or service will be going into. Also, normally these projects are more than just one person. Normally it's a team of a researcher, PhD student, grad students, perhaps business MBA types. So we think a capable, motivated, and adaptable team, that's really important. If you would like to talk, I like to start discussions early so teams can take advantage of the proof of concept fund that Denise mentioned, and customer discovery programs in order to get the best proposal possible. So if you are interested, please contact me. And with that, I will say back to you, Chuck.
Thanks, Eric. I'd like to invite all the panelists to come join us live now. Awesome. So thanks, everybody. That was really a great introduction to all of the hubs, and just listening to you talk about what defines a successful outcome, I think, in your respective talks. I captured the startups, potentially license. Ed, you talked about TRL maturation, commercialization maturity. And the one thing I think everybody touched on maybe was follow-on funding. So question for Eric, maybe you could talk a little bit about the types of follow-on funding that someone might pursue after an MTRAC. And then how does MTRAC really improve your chances of achieving that? And I'm guessing you've got some success stories from transportation.
For sure. Yeah, thanks, Chuck. So we often, sometimes there are very fast moving technologies that get venture capital funding, and we've had a few examples of that. Often these projects will take advantage of SBIR grants from federal agencies. So SBIR stands for Small Business Innovation Research Grants. So they're made to startup companies. Phase 1 is $150,000, and then phase 2 becomes more selective and more serious. I think for many of the agencies, it's like $750,000. So most of our projects that move forward get SBIR grants, build up their teams, start supplying to customers. From our hub, a couple success stories. Professor Sakamoto, who is also funded once by the MTRAC materials and once by us. He's recently received federal funding from a Department of Energy agency called ARPA-E in order to set up manufacturing for solid state batteries, which are basically more energy dense battery technologies. So he's in Ann Arbor gearing up, and a really important technology to transportation and other industries that use energy storage through batteries. Another one is Movelis, which was an early project. They do low power analog circuit design tools for designing chips, basically. So not exactly the most transportation one, but they're an operating company in California and in Ann Arbor with many dozens of employees and many millions of dollars in funding. And then there's many more kind of smaller ones in Ann Arbor that have been successful.
Great, thanks. I think the initial reaction to MTRAC is it's about the funding opportunity. From my experience watching projects, there's a whole lot more value to that program than just the funding. I think Ed talked about oversight committees, he talked about mentors and residents, and maybe interaction with tech transfer offices. Sarah, could you maybe share your observations of how you've seen teams grow through those interactions with those key people?
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head there with the statement that the Oversight Committee feedback is extremely valuable. I would say about as valuable as the funding. So our Oversight Committee is made up of national industry experts with a deep knowledge of life science commercialization. And throughout the process, the application process, review process, and then once teams are funded, the Oversight Committee provides feedback, coaching, mentorship to these project teams. For one example of a really good connection, so our Oversight Committee is made up of, so there are some venture capitalists on that group, and they have been able to sort of coach these early stage projects toward what would make them more attractive for an investment once they leave the university. So that's been really helpful, that level of mentorship. Outside of our Oversight Committees, there's also mentorship available through the MIR program in the Venture Center at U of M, and then also the MEDC funded T3N program. And these mentors are able to make introductions to potential investors, customers, partners, talent, and really help guide the process of the technologies leaving the university.
Great, thank you, Sarah. So I think it's clear that this is a really valuable program. So for the PIs or the researchers out there that think that they want to apply to this, Nate, I'm wondering, could you tell us what makes a really good candidate for this program?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, we do have a couple of hard requirements in order to apply to any of the programs, particularly that you are cooperating and working with your respective intellectual property office or technology transfer office. So whether you are a public university, a health system, a not-for-profit research institution, the equivalent of your technology transfer office needs to have an invention disclosure describing exactly the invention that you'll be applying to any of our programs for. So typically we like to see projects that are at a TRL level of around 3 to 5. And again, it's not for basic research, it's for very commercially minded applications of something that you've already conducted basic research on. It's not necessary that there is a formal IP protection at the time of application. However, that certainly helps, but there does need to be a plan on how to acquire that, that intellectual property, the formal protections later on or during the MTRAC program. And of course, this is, again, a commercial program, a commercialization focused program. And so it needs to address a quantifiable market issue. And so your technology transfer office will hopefully help you identify at least the order of magnitude of the issue that you're trying to address.
Great. So what if maybe I'm not quite ready for MTRAC? You know, the technology needs to mature, my business plan isn't there. Are there other programs maybe that you would steer us to? And I think maybe Sarah, you touched on Kickstart, and maybe felt that Kickstart and there's something called the advanced grant as well, right?
Yeah, so exactly. At MTRAC Life Sciences, we have the Kickstart program as our early stage fund. Some of the other MTRACs also have starter grants. And then there's also the advanced grant, which is housed at Michigan State, and that offers proof of concept funding for projects. Also at U of M, there are some specialty funds that are available. I think probably the best way to identify which fund you're going to be best suited for is actually to reach out to the people on this panel or your tech transfer representative, and they can point you in the right direction for whatever funding stage you're ready for. Other opportunities outside of funding, I know there are some excellent education programs. For example, at FFMI, we have our Fast-Paced program, which focuses on the development of life science technologies. This is a free program that's offered twice a year. And it really helps to de-risk projects through customer discovery and sort of hone the pitch. I can really tell a difference in projects that have gone through the course in the way their proposal reads versus those that haven't. So I think it's really beneficial. Eric, I think that there are some education programs offered through the College of Engineering also?
Yes, so College of Engineering, the Center for Entrepreneurship runs the National Science Foundation I-Core node for the Midwest, so Innovation Core, which is also basically customer discovery. Come in with a hypothesis regarding what is special about your technology and what problem it solves for specifically whom. And just getting out and speaking with customers is not a normal activity that a researcher does, in the labs. So it really helps refine the idea.
I think Nate probably touched on this already, but I often get questions of, I don't know which hub to apply to because the technology overlaps, right? And, a very common one, which I think you cited, was battery material for electric vehicles. Which program should I apply to? And I think you guys are all in close communication and kind of sort of talk things over and whatnot. But maybe somebody can offer some advice on that.
Absolutely. And so there's a few questions you want to keep in mind when you're considering which MTRAC program to apply to. Perhaps first and foremost is simply the timing of how the different programs line up. We don't all start in January, don't all start at the same time. And so if you are on a mission critical path where time is of the absolute essence, it may be that you go with the program where you're able to get funding the most quickly. However, there's other considerations such as who are the Oversight Committee members? Can I tap into their knowledge better at one program that'll fit my application than at a different program? And so another consideration might be what regulatory barriers are possibly in the way of my commercialization path. And so if it's FDA, you may want to go to the U of M Life Sciences Hub. If it's NISTA, you may want to go to the U of M Advanced Transportation Hub. And of course, reaching out to any of the CPDs, reaching out to your technology transfer office, we can work through with you all these questions that you might have of where's the best fit, and communicating early and often is really the key here to identify the best chance at success for not only receiving the grant, but also for successful implementation of the technology after successful completion of the activities under your grant.
So I'm looking at the time here, and I want to make sure that we get to some of our audience questions, because we've got some really good ones. And actually, we got two related questions, which I think would best be answered by Denise. So the first question is, can I apply to more than one MTRAC hub at a time? Second related question is, can I apply for a second year of MTRAC funding if I've already received an award? Denise, you want to take that one?
Sure, thank you, Chuck. So kind of following up on what Nate had mentioned, MTRAC is laser focused on translating your research into the commercial market, and your proposal needs to be focused on commercial milestones in order to get you there. So it's very important for you to be selective and work with your tech transfer office and really understand each of the innovation hubs and what they've funded in the past, the makeup of their oversight committee, and how they can help you get to that end game, rather than just throwing out a whole bunch of proposals and crossing your fingers and hope that somebody picks you. It's a focused effort as opposed to kind of a game of chance, if you will. You know, we've had a couple of examples as it relates to projects going into one hub for a commercial market. So we had a project a few years ago that applied to the advanced transportation MTRAC hub and did a great job on their milestones. And as they were going through, a couple of the oversight committee members said, you know, you're doing a great job and this is great science, but what I think you should be looking at is this type of an application that would be a good fit for the life sciences hub. And so they actually regrouped, they put together a really nice proposal, looked at their commercial milestones and applied and got funded through the life science hub, created a company, Parabricks. And I think recently they were just acquired by a company based on that technology. So that gives us two examples. That gives us an opportunity to, you know, we're going to this commercial end game. We thought we were going to advanced transportation. Great feedback from the oversight committee. We went to life sciences, got funded life sciences, created a company, got acquired. So that's a great example of listening and being thoughtful on the oversight committee. And it also points to how many MTRACs can I get? So we like to limit you to 2 MTRACs. Again, this is a very focused program, a statewide program on commercialization. So this is not a granting program that just has endless amounts of money and resources to just continue to grant for your research, you know, until you find something. So be thoughtful about the innovation hub, look at the oversight committee, talk to the commercialization program directors, and 2 is a good number to limit yourself.
Thanks, and totally agree. Parabricks is just a great story to see that evolve and have a successful exit and see so many people touch upon that one and add value. While I've got you on the screen, the next question is, can you please explain how the matching funds requirement works?
Absolutely. So at a 30,000 foot level, kind of matching up with my graphic, I will explain the matching funds. And then for whoever asked the question, for your particular case, please work with your tech transfer office and the individual you know, commercialization program director that you're interested in the hub you're hoping to apply. So we require matching funds. It's a cash match on most occasions. We try to, it's kind of a understanding your scenario, understanding what you're trying to accomplish and the resources you have available. The Michigan Strategic Fund a couple of years ago supported our request to kind of have a tiered approach for the cash match and support and understanding of not all universities are created equal and have the same resources available to them. And we really wanted the MTRAC program to be inclusive and to bring out some of the great technology that's happening at some of our regional teaching institutions, such as Ferris or Saginaw Valley or Grand Valley. So we were able to set up a tiered approach based on the higher education research numbers that each university's report out, if you will. So there are 3 tiers. There's a 1-to-1 cash match based on your research expenditures. There's a 25% cash match, and then there's a 10% cash match.
Yeah, and it seems like that's really helped, sort of allow more teams to apply, and it's been very beneficial. So thank you.
It has, yes. It's really important to have a match. There's got to be skin in the game because this is taxpayer money, and this is an important program to support getting to an end game of your project or your technology into the commercial market. So the match is very key eligibility requirement.
So I'm going to lump 2 more questions together that are kind of related, maybe a little bit different. But first question is, can grad students or postdocs apply for funding? And then the second one, which maybe is related, is does MTRAC require the faculty to have an outside business partner, or does it encourage that to happen? So, so can grad students and postdocs apply, and does MTRAC like outside business partners? And I'll open this up to the floor to anybody who wants to take a stab at it. How about Ed? You want to take this one?
No, no.
He's on mute.
Thank you, Chuck. I knew you were going to pick me. Going back to what Nate has said, the part of the requirement for the MTRAC is that you have to disclose your invention to the tech transfer office. So without double checking, I'm very sure that the PI has to be involved, or the faculty has to be involved in the MTRAC application. Same thing applying to the, what was the second part again about the industry partner?
Yeah, they wanted to know if that was required or if that was beneficial to have an outside industry partner.
Well, not necessarily, but remember this particular grant is a pre-launch and pre-startup. So if you're talking about if the research team has a foresight to involve the early engagement of the industry input through the industry partner or the business partners and whatnot, I think they would help their case in designing the hypothesis and the killer experiment. So they would benefit from that perspective. So number one, it's not required, but because of the fact that the applications and the teams we support are pre-startup, so the relationship has to be looked at case by case as such.
Great.
Chuck, if I could jump in and kind of circling back to the grad student postdoc question. So, you know, reinforcing what Ed had just said, you know, one of the MTRAC requirements is for intellectual property to be there. And so faculty, professor, you know, is the lead and the PI and the submitter of the MTRAC proposal. However, what is one of the great outcomes of MTRAC is that there are grad students and postdocs and lab technicians and a team of people that are actually working on the MTRAC project. So they can be involved in the MTRAC project. They can do the work. They can even come to the Oversight Committee meetings when we have them in person or even on Zoom and do the presentations. I think that is great experience for them to get involved in a commercial translation kind of a program to get the interaction between industry and between the investors. So it's a great learning tool above all else.
So to add to that point that just going back, some of the things that the other panelists have mentioned, if one of the outcome is a follow-on funding, I think it was Eric mentioned about the NSF, SBI, SATR, and I-Corps. I think it's because of the fact that program is designed to keep you moving forward, not only from the technology validation, but follow-on funding. I think having the business, the industry engagements, especially postdoc and students involved, if they may lead into becoming the entrepreneur lead and potentially the PI on the company side. So MTRAC would be a great place to start with that foresight from a strategic perspective as well.
Yeah, I would totally agree. It's such a great outcome of the MTRAC program is just watching grad students and postdocs mature. You know, just they're awesome technically, and then they just pick up the entrepreneurial skills. Very, very huge benefit. So we are just about out of time. I think maybe we can do one final question if it's a quick answer for Joe. The question is there assistance or positioning to help get subsequent funding? And Joe, since you were a mentor in residence, I know that's something that mentors are really good at. Could you talk about that in 30 seconds or less?
Wonderful, yes. The answer is yes. And all of the MTRAC programs are fairly well connected both to the smart zones in the state of Michigan, which are tied to the entrepreneurial ecosystems, as well as through the oversight committees to entrepreneurial investors and people who have experience in terms of developing startups. So the answer is yes, call us for more information.
Great. Well, and with that, I just want to thank all of the panelists for your time today. I really appreciate you being here. And to the audience, if you think that your research might be a good fit for one of these programs, please consider applying and reach out to the program directors very early. The earlier, the better, because they can work with you and give you a better chance for success. So once again, thank you for attending Celebrate Invention with us today, and enjoy the rest of your week.